It's so important. All right. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me for Pilates All Levels. My name is Audra, and today we're going to use a foam roller. If you're at home and you don't have a foam roller, that is a-okay. You can roll a yoga mat a couple times to lie down on it, just to give a little bit of instability. And when we're getting like some of our muscles rolling, you can kind of use a rolling pin or a massage gun or a tennis ball that you might have to steal from your dog. As always, don't do anything that doesn't feel right for your body. We're actually going to get started with a tiny bit of balance work today. So bring your feet together, touching each other. And if you're on a squishy mat, that's great. It is more challenge. We're going to bring our arms forward into little zombie arms, and then close your eyes and just see what your body is saying. If all of a sudden you feel really like wobbly, first line of defense is opening your eyes. And then bring your arms down to your sides. We're going to widen our feet. We're going to do a spine tornado. So keep this as slow as possible, especially if you start feeling dizzy. So in an ideal world, we'll close our eyes. If that is too much for you, please feel free to keep them open. Drop one ear to the opposite shoulder. Nope, not to the opposite shoulder, same shoulder. And then chin down. And then ear to the other shoulder. Chin up. Now, when we do this again, you're going to let your shoulders come with you. And back. And now when you do this again, you're going to let your rib cage and shoulders come with you. And then when we do this again, you're going to let your hips move with you. Slow and steady wins the race. And then this next time, we're going to go all the way down to the range that your body says is okay. And then if you need to open your eyes before you go to the other side, you can. Otherwise, we're going to start just with the ear. And down. And again. And back. And then let your shoulders come with you. And then let your rib cage come with you. And if you need to hold on to anything, like your foam roller, you can. This time, let your hips come with you. Trying to let your spine get some easy passive movement. And then go all the way to the place your body allows. And then come back to center and open your eyes. All right, now let's try one more balance thing. And since our eyes were just closed, you're going to be so stable. Bring heel to toe like you're on a little tightrope, and then check out to see if your hips are rotating. We want to use that back glute to help us stabilize. Yeah. And then you can just look to one side. Yeah. And yeah, you can wiggle your fingers. You can hold on to a foam roller. It's up to you. One more. And then other side. Good. So we are challenging, yes, our neuromuscular system, but our vestibular, our inner ear, and our visual system. All of that is needed for balance. Good. And then we can bring our feet back together, nod your chin, hollow out through the front of your body, rolling it all the way down, just getting a little stretch through either your calves or your hamstrings, and then come all the way down to the floor. So we have our foam roller. going to bring one armpit on top of that foam roller and support your head with your hand. Now, in this position, if you're like, wow, that's intense, keep your elbow down. If you're like, I would like more pressure, please, float your elbow up. But we're still supporting our head. And make sure you have enough foam roller behind you that you can roll back a little. And we're just first going to rotate from our rib cage back and rotate from the rib cage forward. So your hips will have to respond, but we're still trying to keep the majority of the movement through our thoracic spine. Only go into a place that feels good. Keep your head nice and supported. So I'm actually resting my head on my hand like we're hanging out, having a conversation, except my elbow's off the ground. So it's not bad to be able to extend your neck, but in this position, for our needs, we're keeping it in neutral. Last one like this. And then find a spot that maybe talks just a little bit. Hang out and breathe. If you need to adjust your foam roller, it's fine. Couple breaths here. Good. And then we get to do the other side. See, that wasn't so bad. We are getting that lat a little bit, as well as a little bit of rotation through our rib cage, right? That thoracic rotation. So once you find that spot, if you're like, this is good, great. If you're like, I would like more pressure, float that arm up. Good. And you can also adjust the foam roller. Maybe it feels better up higher, maybe it feels better lower. And we just rotate and then rotate. With the foam roller, if you have a choice between one that's like really hard, so much that you kind of brace and can't relax, or one that's really soft, going with that soft one is actually going to be more effective. So everybody's kind of pain tolerance and rolling tolerance is different. And studies show our body responds best to what we perceive as a medium pressure. So if the hard foam roller is a medium pressure to you, great. If the soft foam roller is a medium pressure to you, great. Just try to breathe. We have one more forward and back. And then find a place that maybe talks a little bit and we hold and breathe. Couple more breaths. Doing all right, everybody? Good. And then we're turning onto our back. So the foam roller will be behind our like shoulder blades or a little bit lower. Hands behind your head for support. Lift the crown of your head to the sky. And then just let yourself gently extend. Yes, your neck will extend, but if you're extending all in your neck or all in your neck and low back, as opposed to in your thoracic spine, nod your chin a little bit. And then you can come forward. And then extend. Okay. Just a couple more here. Trying to rotate and get movement through each of your thoracic vertebrae. Last one. And come up. We're now going to move our roller to underneath our hips, as long as that feels appropriate. So if for any reason having the foam roller on your sacrum doesn't feel good, You can always come down onto the ground here. Before we come into our position, just make sure your ribs aren't flaring. We want to sink the ribs down. If you've got really long legs, it might be easy to keep your feet on the ground. If you have shorter limbs or tight hip flexors, it might be more of a challenge. So just be aware. Let your tailbone point just gently towards the sky, and then bring one leg at a time into your tabletop. Now, I like to hold on to the sides of my foam roller, but maybe you like to hold on a little bit closer. Good. Now, if you feel like your legs are kind of far out, bring them a little closer to you and drop your heels down slightly. This should be a relatively relaxed position. Now, squeeze those inner thighs together like you're trying to pop a balloon, and let one hip lower as the other hip lifts a little bit. Inhale, exhale, bring it back down. Other side. Inhale, exhale, drag your ribs back. So we're getting supine spine twist with a little bit of a glute massage. Trying not to let your back respond in an arched position. If you look at your knees, that top knee is traveling at least as far as the bottom. It's like you have a gem in between your knees and you don't want to drop it. One more each side. Now, if the foam roller feels like it's about to roll away from you, get it just a tiny bit closer. If it feels solid, you can keep it right where it is. Flex your feet. Imagine pushing your heels into a wall. Now keep one knee right where it is, extend your other leg, and then allow that heel to drop down. Getting maybe a little bit of stretch through your hip flexor or your quad. Drag the heel back in, float it back. Other side. Push, reach, see where it goes, and then drop it down. So we're trying to extend from our hip flexor first, and then when we bend the knee, it puts a little stretch on our quad. Yes, we are trying to stabilize from our rib cage. Good. So if as you drop your leg, your whole spine responds, don't go as far. Think about pushing the foot away more than it needing to get to the ground. Almost there. And notice what your body tries to do, right? So if your leg, as soon as you try to bend it, tries to go out to the side, or as soon as you try to bend it, it lifts, right? That's just telling you what is either tight or at least neurologically dominant. Last one, each side. Good. And then you can hug your knees into your chest and scoot the foam roller away from you. We are turning it lengthwise, and we're going to lie down on it. Now, if this is too difficult, you can just do this on the ground. If you're like, well, it doesn't feel good on my spine, but I still want the challenge, roll like a yoga mat and lie down on a yoga mat instead. So making sure that your head and tail are very supported here. We just want to find our center and see how we feel. Now, if you need more support, feet wide. Less support, feet narrow. I personally like mine in line with my hip bones. Now just bring your hands to your pelvis if you can. And without your back gripping, without arching or tucking. On your exhale, we're just going to sink our low abs away from our hands and maybe put just 5% pressure in your foam roller. And then relax. And then sink. And then maybe a little pressure. We're just trying to find those deep abdominals. And sometimes applying a little bit of downward pressure from the front can help us find that. So if you find your glutes gripping to try to help you, let them be soft. It's like you're trying to just be a little bit heavier on the foam roller. Last one. And then bring your fingertips towards the sky. Allow your arm bones to relax down. Flip your palms to face your knees. Slowly let those arms come down to the ground. See where they want to go. Maybe they stop in your periphery. Maybe they stop next to your ears. Maybe they go all the way to the ground. Just pause at your first moment of resistance. Now imagine that your hands are against like a giant marshmallow and you want to push into the marshmallow. And then relax, dragging your elbows down into a goalpost. Good. Once you reach your goalpost, see where you are, right? If your shoulders are coming forward, see if you can rotate your shoulder blades around your ribs. And then just put a little bit of pressure down into your elbows. And then relax. And then put a little bit of pressure down into your knuckles. If you do this by moving your wrists, see if you can do it from the shoulder joint. And then relax. Good. One more from the elbow. See how that changes the stretch, right? And then one more from the knuckles. And then relax. Slide your arms back up overhead. And then slide them back down into your goalpost. As you do this, feel what your shoulder blades do, right? See if they move together. Or see if one moves really well and the other one just likes to lag behind, right? It's just information. 2 more. Last one. Take those fingertips away from you. So now we're in a T position. If it feels like your hands are going numb, give them a second and then reach again. You're going to reach longer through your left side, look to your right. And then other side. Back and forth just a couple of times. Getting just a nice little stretch through those pecs. If you tend to have pinching in the back of your shoulder when you try to externally rotate, when you reach long, also just gently push your knuckles into the ground from the back of your shoulder. Other side. And then come back to center. Your hands can be on the ground next to you to start. They can either be fully flat, palms up or down, or you can be on little spider fingers. Now, exhale, find that little bit of connection through your deep abdominals. Float one leg to tabletop. As you float the leg up, think about the thigh bone sinking down. Then reach that knee away, push that foot down, toe ball heel. Exhale, other side. Now, as you do this, if you're like, yeah, that's easy, I got this, you can hover your hands. Or if you're like, well, I can almost hover my hands, but not quite, put one fingertip on the ground. If that feels good, you can always bring your fingertips to the sky, still allowing those arm bones to melt onto the foam roller. And the more you push into that foot, push through your mat, into the floor, One, the more your hamstring is going to connect, right? But also the more sturdy you're going to be. If we just kind of barely let that foot like hang out on the ground, you don't have as stable of a surface. One more. Float your first leg up. Now, wherever your hands are is fine. We're gonna push the foot away, trying to stabilize from the ribs, and then fold it back in. Once again, and we reach and we fold. Hands can be down. Fingertips can be down. Hands can hover or they can be up. If your hands are up, why don't you try bringing those arms overhead as that foot goes away? You're still trying to connect armpits to thigh bone. We have two more. Last one. And bring it down. Guess what? Other side. So push that foot into the ground. See where you go. Maybe your hands are down. Push the foot away. Maybe your fingertips are down. Maybe your hands hover. Maybe your fingertips come to the sky, right? Maybe your arms reach overhead. If your arms are reaching overhead, imagine you have a 10-pound weight and you want to resist that from your abs, right? Using your breath. We have three more. And two. Last one. Come back, bring the feet down. Now, if your hands have to be wide with your feet down, that's okay. Otherwise, you can bring both hands behind your head. Spiral your elbows forward, nod your chin a little. Now, before we move, on your exhale, you're going to hug your ribs and hip bones in towards your belly button, and then curl your chest forward. Good. Now, if you went into a deep tuck, you'll feel it pretty much right away. See if you can let your sacrum be just a little bit more neutral, and then slowly lower down. How did that feel, everyone? So exciting? Yeah. Now, if you're like, oh, that's too exciting, bring a hand down. Give yourself a little support. And then you can switch hands. Now, also notice if you try to grip with your bum, right? So if you feel like your glutes kind of clench or you feel your sacrum like get a little bit of tension, see if you can relax your glutes or your posterior pelvic floor, right? So a lot of times we talk about engagement, but we also need to be able to relax. Hold this last one up. Good. Hands come forward if you can. Push them into an imaginary surface to maybe get a tiny bit more height. Hands come back behind your head. Keep your elbows in your periphery, looking at your mid-thigh. Now lift one heel only. Push it down, lift the other heel only. So your toes are still on the ground. Back and forth. Trying to curl forward towards your thighs. Now, if it's appropriate, you can then slowly float one foot. And then slowly reach it back down. And slowly do the other side. If that is not appropriate, stick with lifting the heel. Or bring your head back down. It's the same thing. It's just a wider base of support, right? Good. Making sure that your back is tension free. Slow and steady wins the race. Almost there. Anybody not feeling their abs yet? Right? And all we're doing is like holding a pose and lifting a leg. Except that's not all we're doing. Last one each side. And then bring your head down. Nice job, you guys. Now, we're going to feel our shoulder blades. Now, not moving our spine, we're just gonna kind of move our shoulder blade, move your shoulder, then other side, move your shoulder. One more, boom, boom. So did you feel how you can kind of control that at the shoulder blade? Now, try to keep your shoulder blades set, and we lift and rotate with, yep, and then back down. Other side, lift, rotate. You won't go very far, but if you feel like you are side bending off of your foam roller, you probably are. That's okay, make it smaller. We're trying to lift and rotate without side bending. Use your breath. Now, if you're like, but I can't do this with my hands behind my head, no problem. One hand on the ground, and then switch hands. Making sure that you're kind of pushing into your feet, letting your toes spread wide. And if this stops feeling okay on your spine, come off of the foam roller. Otherwise, we get to hold this last one. Hold. Now lift just that heel. Maybe the leg floats, maybe it doesn't. Bring the foot down if it did. Other side. Rotate first, hold. Lift the heel, maybe the leg floats. Bring it down. Head comes down. Now, if you are not there, that's great, it's fine. You're gonna bring one hand down, you'll lift, and maybe you lift your heel. Same thing, you lift, rotate, maybe lift your heel. We have one more each side. And then come down. Go ahead and take your head to one side, head to the other side. And then just kind of let your hips move a little, anterior, posterior. Good. And we're going to slowly and with control come off of the foam roller. Now, if it's appropriate, you're gonna bring the foam roller in between your knees. And if at home you don't really have a foam roller, you are using a yoga mat, you can use something else in between your knees, like a yoga block or a ball or a towel rolled up. And just let your hips shift a little from side to side. See how that feels now. Now, if you have the foam roller, even though I want it between your knees, if you can also hug it between your feet, that is great. Hands are going to come to the ground. And if you internally rotate from your shoulder a lot, let your palms be up or facing each other. Exhale, imprint your spine and peel up into your bridge. Good. Now, first bridge doesn't necessarily count, except you can check in, right? So if your weight is on your head or you're lifting from your armpits, hollow out from the front of your body, melting your throat away from you. Push into your big toe so your glutes can help you here, pressing into your triceps. They're also going to assist. And then melt all the way down. And again, hollow, press. Good. Rolling down, letting one bone at a time melt into the floor. 2 more. Last one. Just see where your body goes. And roll all the way back down. Go ahead, grab the roller and bring one knee at a time to tabletop. Now, as we do this, if you have not super flexible hamstrings, maybe your knees need to bend, right? You're gonna reach your hands into the roller. If you need to, you can always keep your knees bent, okay? Otherwise, we extend our legs, press in with the pinky finger side of your foam roller, flat hand, good. And then slowly lower one foot. Maybe it makes it to the ground, maybe it doesn't. Flex the foot, bring it back up. Other side, reach it away rather than down. So think about a shower curtain rod, right? That tension rod, tension happens at one end, but also the other end, right? So keep that tension from the ribs to the foot and the hands to the armpits. Good. Last one, each side. And once again, if you need to bend your knees, that is okay. Now, we're going to press in with one hand. The foam roller will tip. Bring it back, other side. Once again, if this is where you are, great. Honestly, if this is where you are, with your feet down, also great. Hopefully you feel a little bit of extra oblique connection as you take that foam roller from side to side. Now you can start to add the leg. Right? Maybe it makes it down, maybe it doesn't. Maybe you tap instead of lower. And maybe you float the leg up if your feet are down. Okay. Good. These are harder than they should be, aren't they? Yeah. Last one, each side. Using your breath. And then hug your knees in towards your chest. Gently rock from side to side. We're going to slide that foam roller underneath our knees. And then bring our hands to the outside. Now, this is just going to let you know if you try to use your legs to pump your rolling like a ball. Now lift your chest, push your legs into your foam roller, and then slowly start to roll as you try to hug the foam roller with the backs of your thighs. If you're like, oh, I can't do that without my legs lifting, that's okay. It's just information, right? Good. So try to get it so you're curling your tailbone. 2. Last one. And come up. Good. Nice job, you guys. I know, it's much harder than it seems like it should be. Yeah. All right. Go ahead and bring your feet to the foam roller. Hands come forward. Shoulder blades draw down your back. We are going to push the foam roller away as we roll back. And then if your body allows it, you're going to bring it towards you as you roll up. Yeah. And if that doesn't work, it's totally fine. So let me show you guys one more time. It'll be feet away, feet up. If you're like, no, thank you. Okay, guess what? You can do it without. If on the way up, you're like, and I'm gonna get stuck, don't worry about it. You can always just start to rock yourself back up and then slowly roll back down. If that's not working for you for whatever reason, you can just come up like you're waking up from a delightful nap. Yeah, and then you could even do the other side. Okay. Yeah, looking good on the way down. Good. Oh, that was great. That was great. Yeah, breathe next time and it'll be even better. Now, I want you guys to pretend that you're like a beautiful dragon in the mountains. You're about to flap your wings and breathe your fire breath. You didn't breathe. Good. 2 more. Good. Good. Last one. And come all the way down. Go ahead. Bring the foam roller closer to you. Good. And just kind of find where your arches are on it. Now for this first one, let your foot kind of flex and push in with your heels, and then point your toes, roll the foam roller the other direction, just back and forth a couple times. Now this is going to be a challenge. If you try it and you're like, no, thank you, do it without the foam roller. Now, try to find that neutral. So it's not heel, it's not toe, it's arch. You are pressing straight down. Hands can be by your sides. We hip hinge up. Hamstrings are going to work a lot harder than they would with your feet on the ground. And then we melt and roll. Good. And then press hip hinge up and then roll down. Good. If you have trouble articulating through certain parts of your spine, no judgment, right? What you do is you breathe. And so I have trouble with my lumbar. So I'm just going to try to melt the tissue into the floor without worrying about if I'm articulating intersegmentally, okay? So yes, in an ideal world, each part of our spine moves, and we're working towards that. But sometimes it's better just to let it move freely and without force, even if it means 2 to 3 vertebrae move at the same time, right? Last one, have those hamstrings. So good. Good. Bring one leg to tabletop. Interlace your hands behind your head. Spiral your elbows forward. Come into your chest lift. Good. Push that foam roller away and then bring it back. Good. Try to lift your shoulder blades off the ground if you can, curling towards that front leg. Now, we're just going to switch legs. Feel how it feels a little different when you're applying downward pressure versus when the leg is floating freely in the air. Now, if you like, you can add rotation. If you don't want to add rotation, that's fine. Couple more. Last set on this side. Come back to center. Switch feet. So you've got tabletop. We're just rolling, pushing down and away. Bring it in. Yeah. And if you have to readjust where your foot is, that's fine. If at any point you're like, I just need my head down, great. Now, if you'd like, you can push that other leg away. And then if that feels great and you'd like more challenge, just add that rotation. Trying to rotate from the rib cage, letting the opposite hip be heavy. And notice how it feels different from side to side. 2 more. Last set. Hug your knees in towards your chest and gently rock from side to side. Now take your knees and just gently stir your thighs in the socket and then other way. And go ahead and roll yourself up to seated any way you can. Great, we're going to come on to forearms and knees. And you have the option of using the foam roller. Yay! So if you're using the foam roller, have it closer to your elbows, but make sure that it's not on your elbows because you're more likely to slip. Think about pushing the foam roller away slightly and trying to pull your elbows away a little bit, lengthening through the crown of your head, finding those abdominals. Slide one foot out. Fold it in, other side. Now, for fun, let's focus on a couple different things. On this first one, focus on the foot that's sliding. It's like you're dragging it through wet sand, right? Now on this next one, think about that stabilizing leg. It is pressing down and slightly out, so that glute is really helping to stabilize you there. Back and forth. One more each side. Now, if it's appropriate for you and your body, we're going to add on. Otherwise, stick with this. If you would like, you slide one foot out, other foot comes to meet it, you're in a plank. And then if you want, you bend the knee, reach it back. It's a lot, I know. You can also come back, come into the plank, knee down. Go back, come into the plank for a second, bring the knee down. See, rest in between, because it's much better to keep great form for a shorter amount of time. Last one, each side, knees down, press yourselves into a rest position. Now notice that we're in a little bit of shoulder flexion and possibly thoracic extension. So if your head is dropped down, that's fine, but we're going to nod our chin, lift our ears, and you can either stay here, or if you would like more thoracic extension and shoulder flexion, you can lift your hips up. All we're going to do is let our fingertips lift, our shoulder blades will slide up our back, slide the shoulder blades down our back, right? So you guys keep going. For me, I need more thoracic flexion, so I'm going to be down lower. If you need more thoracic extension, lift the hips. We have just a couple more, allowing that glide of the shoulder blade. Think of it just sliding along an ice skating rink, free from any restriction. 2. Last one, find somewhere in between. We're going to take one hand off. We're going to reach it underneath the other armpit. Then slide that elbow out to the side, hand comes out, and open your chest. And then slide it underneath. And then open your chest. If you're here, that's great. Make sure that when you go to rotate, you lift your ribs a little bit so you're not over rotating from your thoracic or your lumbar. Last one. And then we get to do the other side. And notice when you are rotating underneath, what your shoulder needs to do versus when you're rotating away, right? Just a few more. Last two. Last one. We're going to bring that foam roller closer to us if you like. Okay, we're coming into a plank where our shins are going to be on the foam roller. Okay. Depending on your proportions, maybe you like being on your hands. I personally prefer being on my forearms, all right? Now, if this plank does not work for you, instead of forcing it, you're just gonna reach one leg out and then the other leg, okay? Otherwise, push the floor away. Think about pulling your knuckles slightly away from each other. Lift your belly button, extend your legs. Now, if it's appropriate, bend your knees, lift your hips, and then extend. And then you bend your knees, lift your hips. Yeah, I think it needs to be closer to you or be on your forearms. Oh, sorry, maybe not. Hold on. Come onto your forearms for me. And then let's see how that looks. Yeah. I don't know if I can even go anywhere from there. That's okay. Yeah. Yeah, that looks great. And then always feel free to bring your knees down and take a second and then find it again. Yeah. Two more. Last one. Knees down. Press yourselves into your rest position. Those were great. Yeah, those look good. Now we're going to come onto our side and we can use our foam roller as a pillow. Or if you're like, I really like doing side lying in a side plank, you can kind of use the foam roller for feedback, okay? I like how you're already like, it's pillow time. Now think about your bottom rib lifting up off the floor a little bit. As if I wanted to slide a sheet of paper under you, you just kind of make it easy for me. We're trying to find a nice straight spine. Top hip lengthens, and then see where that top hip is. We'd like it to point forward if possible. Now, push that foot away so much that it comes to about hip height. Okay. Now, all we're gonna do, keep it at hip height, internally rotate, so that knee and maybe foot points down, and then externally rotate. Now just notice what's leading the charge, right? So let's, if you're like, I don't know what you mean, Audra, no problem. With this first one, let's see if we can make our foot lead the charge. You might get more rotation, but a lot of it's coming from your tibia. Now relax your foot. This time, think about the upper thigh bone rotating. You might get a little bit less rotation, but do you feel how more of that is from the glutes and less from the calf? One more each side. Maintain this external rotation and just push the glute back in space. So foot back, like it's attached to a wall and we want to push back into the wall. Trying to find it from the glute and not our back. So if you're going really far back and you're like, oh, I feel my back a little bit, don't go as far. Two more. Hold this last one. Tiny circles. Good. Letting that thigh bone just stir freely in the socket. Two, and reverse. Trying to maintain that external rotation for a second. Now hold, knee points forward. Exact same thing, we're just circling, but the knee is now pointing forward as opposed to slightly up. And then reverse the circle. Do you feel this in a slightly different place? Yeah. Now, knee rotates in towards the ground. Circle. Do you feel this in a slightly different place? Yeah. And then reverse. 4, 3, 2, 1. Bring your knees together. Now, without that hip bone diving more forward, we're just going to lift our feet. Notice how one side is now in external rotation, one side is now in internal rotation, yeah? Squeeze your heels together, lift your top knee. Slowly let it come down. And again, now, if you have a lot of SI joint discomfort, instead of being like, okay, where am I in space? Take your hand, just gently press it against your sacrum without a ton of force, just a nice flat pressure to tell your soft tissue that it's safe. 2 more. Last one. Now hold this one up. Let that bottom foot come down. Bottom foot now lifts to the top foot. Bottom foot comes down. Now the bottom foot lifts to the top. Good. So we're just getting rotation from a different range of motion. Muscles will have to work a little differently, right? 2. Last one. Other side. You guys are not as excited as I am. Okay, same side again. We'll walk in a circle when we're done. All right, so find that little lift, that lengthen. Extend your top foot away. Good. Push it so far away from you that it comes into that hip height. Okay, now all we're gonna do, rotate it in and out a few times. Now, for this first few, try to lead with your foot. Right? See if your foot can tell you, oh, I'm getting a bigger range of motion, right? Last one. Now this time, let your foot relax. Find it from your upper thigh bone, right? So that femur is rotating and rotating. And notice if it feels different on this side than the other side, right? Maybe you've got way more external rotation. Maybe you have way more internal rotation. Maybe it's exactly the same. 2 more. Last one, hold this external rotation and just imagine pushing your foot back into a wall. So now that glute max, as well as that glute medius, as well as your piriformis, is kicking on. You're 5, 4, 3, 2, hold. Keep it slightly at that angle. We're just circling, right? Little baby circles, letting that thigh bone gently and freely stir in the socket. We have 5, 4, 3, 2, reverse. Right? Once again, we want that knee rotating slightly to the sky if possible. If you need to, it's okay to like put your hand on your sacrum. Now all we're gonna do, rotate so your knee is forward. Same thing, circle. Imagine dragging that foot through wet sand and then reverse it. Notice how this should be slightly different muscle fibers, right? And then internally rotate if you can. Yeah, tiny little circle. So now your knee is slightly pointing down. Maybe your foot is also slightly pointing down. And then reverse. Dragging that foot behind you a little bit. 3, 2, last one, bring your knees together. Now lift your feet, right? So now external rotation, internal rotation. If your hip really dove forward, see if you can kind of separate it out. Squeeze your heels, lift the knee. Slowly lower. We have just a few more here. And once again, if you need to, put your hand against your sacrum for a little bit of support. Two more. And now we get to hold. Hold. Let that bottom foot come down. Now let the bottom foot come up. Yeah. Good. Just a few more. 4, 3, 2. Last one. Bring them both down. We're going to come onto our stomach. Now, if you have shoulder issues, instead of using the foam roller, you're going to do this on the ground, okay? If you don't have a lot of shoulder dysfunction and you've got a decent amount of range in that flexion, you can keep the forearms on the foam roller. So let the foam roller roll away from you. We're drawing our belly button up just a little bit. Draw your shoulder blades down, spiral your collarbones open, and see if you can get a little bit of upper back extension. If you want a little bit of lower back extension, it's okay. But if you feel any sort of compression or, oh, that is exactly where I'm bending from, try to get more range through your other vertebra as opposed to only getting it from one vertebra. I'd rather you keep your pubic bone heavier than your hip bones here and think more about being shot out of a cannon rather than lifting up super, super high, okay? We have 2 more. Last one. Hands come down. Wrap your elbows in, set your shoulders, press yourself into your rest position. Hands up and over to one side. Press your hips away. And then hands up and over to the other side. Press your hips away. And then we get to come all the way to standing. So feel free to pedal in through your feet and either walk your feet towards your hands or your hands towards your feet. Just dangle out of your hips. And then roll all the way up to a standing position. Now, all we're gonna do, we end with just the teeniest bit of balance, kind of like we started. If heel to toe is where you need to be, fine. Otherwise, think about pushing down into the floor to stack your hip over your ankle, and you can lift a foot. Okay. Yeah. And then you can, if at any point you need to tap that toe down, that's okay. It's okay to let your ankle move. It's just an ankle strategy. And then we're just gonna wrap our arms and then wrap our arms. Now, if you want, you can then add a little rotation. Is it easier to one side and more challenging to the other? Yes. And then we get to do the other side. So maybe this is where you are. Great. Maybe you squeeze that glute and push into the floor so your hip is stacked directly over your ankle and you hold. Maybe this is where you are. Maybe you add that wrapping of the arms. Maybe you also add the rotation of your spine. Good. It's all information, right? 2 more. Making sure if you need to tap your toe down, you do. We want to keep our nervous system happy. Last one. Both feet down. We're going to end with a roll down. Nod your chin. Hollow out from the front of your body. Peel your spine off of an imaginary wall. Let your arms dangle, head dangle. Once you get to the bottom, breathe, and then scoop, roll all the way up. Flip your palms to face the sky. Reach your thumbs back, collarbones open. Any point today, if you are rolling your shoulders forward, come into this position. Shoulder blades draw down, bring them up, and then drop them straight down. Nice job, you guys. Thank you so much for joining me today. Give yourselves a round of applause. Awesome job. Nice work, you guys. How'd everything feel?